Today we're going to be talking about strings. Now this particular lecture is a little bit unique in the sense that we're just going to kind of be going over lots of examples from the book and just kind of understanding all the different methods and properties that we can use that are associated with strings. It's really helpful to just sort of get a top level view of all these different methods and sort of helper methods that you get for free with strings. I have no expectation of you memorizing all of these. It's more like see them once and sort of keep them in the back of your mind. It's just a tool that you can use later on. So let's go ahead and get into it now. And so first off, we're going to instantiate a string right here. We can see string equals string 1 versus a character array, which is an array of characters. There is a difference, and we'll get more into that in a minute. So first what we're going to do is take a look at this syntax here. And we've covered this a little bit before, where they use this dollar sign, and then we have a string literal. And then within there, we have, for example, a backslash open quotes here. And this just means actually print the quote. That's what this is about, this escape character. The same reason we do a backslash tab. This syntax here just says within these brackets, you can see it even shows you that it's this particular variable. So it's just showing you a way to concatenate a string within this string here. I personally dislike this syntax, but it's just kind of the way it is. So it's another way you can do it. I personally like to use the plus sign to concatenate strings together, but that's just me. So just kind of be aware of that. So the first thing we're going to learn about is the length property. So we can see you can highlight any of these particular, these properties or methods, and you get some IntelliSense about it. And all this is going to do is just tell you how many characters are within the string. You need to use this all the time for, if you need to loop through a string or you need to get a length in order to allocate so much memory. So just be aware of string.length. Down here we can see that they're actually looping through each character within the string. So this is kind of unique right here, where this string variable, they're actually accessing it like an array, which is kind of nice because it just gives you that much more functionality. And there's other ways to do this, but it's kind of nice to be able to just reference specific characters within a string. Now here's an example of the first method we're going to learn about, the copy_to method. And there's so many different methods that, if you just do the IntelliSense, you can kind of start going through them here and to kind of get an understanding of each ones, and we'll be going through most of them today. So in this particular instance, we're copying this string into this character array that we created up here. And so again, it's just one way that you can do, copying from one string to another string, or in this case, a character array. So this next example that we're going to go through, I wanted to show you that you can declare a string or you can declare it using the var keyword. Now you'll notice if I highlight this, it says local variable and it's string called string1. If I highlight this one, it says local variable string2. So it is exactly the same to say var or string here. Just remember, it is strongly typed. This does not mean variant like JavaScript, for example. It's still strongly typed. It still is a string. It's not figuring it out at runtime. It knows right now, and it actually replaces var with string behind the scenes. I personally don't like using the var keyword for these particular sets of variables. We'll learn later on when we get into generics. We'll talk about the usefulness of the var keyword, but I always like to just specify the variable type here. And as you see a whole bunch of variables in some of the later examples, you'll see why I prefer it that way. So here we're just writing out all the strings. Now the string has an equals sign. So just like this syntax here, you can use this one here. So it's kind of up to you whether you use either one. I generally prefer this particular one here, but that's just my prerogative. Another thing here, you can see, test for quality comparing case. Again, just kind of straightforward. Down here, we're just kind of running some strings, and to kind of show you what this CompareTo method does, I think I'll run it. But you can see it's comparing these different instances of two different strings, but it kind of tells you the order that they appear in. So let me just run this. It'll be easier to explain. And so you can see up here it actually lists out the string 1. So we have hello and we have goodbye. So you can see here, you'll notice the string 2 is just returning an integer. It is returning 0, or 1, or a -1, based on which, if it comes, string 1 comes before or after string 2, or in this case, if they're equals, it returns a 0. I don't think I've really honestly ever used the CompareTo method, but it's available to you. All right, let's move on to the next example here. So here, this is an array of strings. So we have an array. Each index in the array is holding a given string. Okay. So now here we're using a for each statement just like we've done before. So it's going to loop through, and each of these strings, the first time through element is going to hold started, the second time through it's going to hold starting, etc., etc. Here is a string method called StartsWith. Pretty self-explanatory, just a true or false. Does it start with st? So you can see that the first two are going to return true, the second two are going to return false. Down here, ends with, right? Just the opposite of starts with. So it just helps you search strings rather than you have to going through and looking at characters and things like that. It just makes it a lot easier to use these built-in methods. The next example, you can see we've got string letters and we've got this char search letters. So down here we're just going to print off some of the data. So the first one here we got letters, again, so this is all of our letters, and we're trying to find the index of C. Now remember, it is 0 based, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2 is what value this is going to return here. Now if we come down here, you can see we also have LastIndexOf. Self-explanatory, it's going to find the last value for C. Come down, IndexOf, LastIndexOf, let's see, IndexOfAny. So here, it's going to be the 0 based index of the first occurrence in the instance. So I don't care which one, but just return the first one to me. Then down here we have LastIndexOf. So again, depending on what you're trying to search your string for, you have multiple methods on how to get what you're looking for. This particular example, we're going to look at the substring method. Now this one I use quite a lot, so this is something you'll probably kind of be ingrained into your mind, where you're just trying to find the substring of a given set. So here's letters. So what this says is it start at index 20 and give me all of the rest of the string. If you wanted the entire string, you would pass in 0. Now, more than likely, you do some syntax like this, where you can see, hey, what's the starting index? So this says give me the first 6 characters, is what this is saying. Saying start at the 0 index and give me 6 characters. So now we're going to talk about concatenating strings. So with concatenating strings, there's the string.concat, or you could just use the plus sign, which is generally what I do. But again, there's just lots of different ways that you can do the different operations. This next example here, what you'll notice is again, we've got this syntax here that's kind of new to C#. And we got down here is where we're going to start replacing letters within our string. So here we got string 1. You can see cheers. So when we replace this, these two E's are now going to be capitalized within our letter. 2 lowercase. So the 2 lowercase and 2 uppercase are methods, again, I use all of the time, mainly the 2 uppercase. So what I'll do a lot of times, especially if I'm comparing strings, I would say string 1.ToUpper, does it equal, string 2.ToUpper, just to make sure, because I generally don't care about case in a lot of instances. So that's one way that I will do that. Trim is just a way to get rid of leading and trailing white space characters, so spaces. Another thing that I'll, like, if I'm getting input from a user, I'm going to do things like this. These are probably the most 2 common things that I'm going to do to validate the user input that they're giving me. Now we're going to switch kind of pace. We're going to talk about the StringBuilder class. So what you need to understand about strings is that if you're manipulating a string, let's say you replace a particular character or you change it, you concatenate it on, a brand new string is always generated. It doesn't actually update the given string. You can think of that string almost like it's a constant and it doesn't change. So if you do change it, it actually replaces it with a whole brand new string, which isn't very efficient. Now, the vast majority of the time, it's just fine. It's lightning fast for what the purposes you need it. But if you need anything that's speed intensive, then you want to use the StringBuilder class. So again, if you're manipulating a string and you care about the speed of it, and you're manipulating all these characters, then you want to use the StringBuilder class. So it's just a special class that you can treat kind of like a string, kind of like an array. So you'll notice that here we've got StringBuilder, and that's exactly the same as these second statements here. You can see, but they're just using the var keyword. If I highlight this, you can see it's still StringBuilder. So first we've got this one called buffer1, and you notice we didn't put anything in the constructor. Here we put the value of 10, and here we put the value of hello. So there's multiple ways to instantiate the StringBuilder class. So this just creates the default StringBuilder. This here says create it, but start it off with a capacity of 10. Think of it as 10 elements in an array. Here, you're going to start the string builder off, and you're going to start it with the value hello, and then you would manipulate it from there. So let's look at some other examples here to actually show you what the string builder class does for you. So here we're going to instantiate the string builder class. Then we're going to go and instantiate it with this hello, how are you built in. Now what they're showing you here is that, oh, here's what the actual value is, which is going to print out this. Length is going to print out how many characters there are, and the buffer.capacity is what we're learning in this particular instance. So I'm going to go ahead and just run this. And you can see if I come over here, so the buffer is hello, how are you? The length is 19, the capacity is 19. So capacity, what it's trying to do is, because it wants to give you just enough space, not take up too much space, not too little space, exactly the amount of space you're going to need in order to manipulate the characters within this string. So you'll notice that if you instantiate it this way, it's going to set your capacity equal to your length. However, if you would like to, you can ensure a capacity. You can actually upgrade your capacity. So in this case, it's going to upgrade it to 75. Or you can actually basically truncate it by setting the length here and set it to 10. So you would want to, if you knew that this is going to have to grow and shrink, but you weren't quite sure, but you knew it was going to be less than 75 characters, that's why you would do something like this. Because again, you don't want to have it continually allocate more space, because that's going to take up more time. So that's, again, the string builder, the whole point of it is to manipulate strings quickly. So that's why you want to use that. So the next example here, let me go ahead and shut the other one down. The next example, what they're going to do is they're going to create a whole bunch of different variables, and they're going to do it of different types. So you can see the first one is object. This first one you can see is a string. Now again, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see what the type is over here, but for me, I like to actually word string here. I just don't want to have to figure things out, is my own personal opinion. Then we've got a character array, we've got boolean, char, int, etc., etc. Now why did they do this with all these different variables? Because they wanted to show you the append method. You'll notice that what's nice about this append method is it has 19 overloads, which means that as far as you're concerned, you don't even care the type, you just can append any of these values, and it's going to take care of the conversion for you. So it's kind of a nice little tool for the string builder class. Okay, this next example, you'll notice kind of the same sort of a thing where we're just instantiating a bunch of various types. And here we're just going to use the insert method. So you can see we're just inserting it all at the beginning, but it takes care of all the conversion for you. So you just insert it where you want to, and then just pass in the variable. And that's all you have to do. And there's also remove. You can see the start index and the length. So there's just lots of different ways you can manipulate this data within your string builder. The last one here is really helpful, something I use all the time with validation, is we have this char structure. Now what's nice about it is if you are looking at individual characters within your string, or user input, and let's say the user is supposed to enter a number, between 1 and 10, for example. You could use the char to say, hey, is it a digit? Is it a letter? Things of that nature. And so they're just showing you lots of different things you can do with this char keyword. So I would make a note of this. This is really handy, this char dot, where you can see if it's a digit, if it's a letter or digit, is lower, is upper. You can see there's even ToUpper, ToLower, things like that, symbol, punctuation. So just a very nice tool to know about when you're validating user input, things like that. So kind of a quick lecture, just kind of going over strings and chars and the string builder class, just again to give you some more tools in your toolbox to use. Thank you.